In today's video, we're gonna take a look at a moped style e-bike that comes in at almost $1,000 less than its closest competitor, the Engwe M20. So let's get into it. Hey everyone, JT from Ebike Escape here. And before we take a closer look at the Engwe M20, I just want to ask everyone a couple quick favors. If you are looking to purchase any Engwe bike, please consider using the links down in the description. All purchases made after clicking those links help support us here at Ebike Escape, help us continue to make content like this one. Also linked down in the description, we'll have links to our e-bike accessories list, top e-bikes brands page, our e-bikes discounts code page, as well as our newly opened Ebike Escape shop, where we've started to collect a slew of high quality products that we use daily here at Ebike Escape. So with all that out of the way, let's talk about the Engwe M20. So as I said in the intro, the Engwe M20 comes in at almost $1,000 less than some of its closest competitors. Now, as you see it outfitted here, it comes in the dual battery option, so that margin does shrink a little bit, but it puts the Engwe M20's feature list quite a bit higher than its other competition. So the big elephant in the room is, how are they able to do that? How is this bike competitive? Now, this bike has been out for a little bit of time now, and we are not the first people to review it. However, we're hoping that maybe you seeing our opinion on it and applying that to some other reviewers' opinions, it'll really tell you whether this bike is fit for you. I have an opinion about this bike a little bit after assembly, that it is a great bike for the value that it offers. However, there are some places where Engwe, in order to achieve that low price, speaking of low price, we'll get to that in just a minute, that they had to make some compromises in order to achieve that value and price. The typical order of our reviews is we do an in-depth walkthrough, show you everything about the bike, we do some first-person riding, we do a hill climb test, and at the end we give you our concluding thoughts. For this review more than others, I recommend that you watch most of the walk around, as I'm gonna go through and maybe point out some places that Engwe could have upgraded, but as well as you could purchase maybe this bike and then upgrade it to make it one of the most compelling value moped style e-bikes out there. As well as in the concluding section, I will really give you my full opinion on this bike as a total package and tell you whether I do recommend that you purchase this bike or whether it's not worth the money that you're saving. So before I talk about the specifics and we take a closer look, let's do a little bit of an overview of Engwe and the M20. Engwe as a brand has quite a few models that range in price from $10.99 to $18.99, and they range in designs from folding to regular bikes to now this moped style bike you see here in front. The Engwe M20 in front of us with the dual batteries comes in at $15.99. Yes, that is $15.99. That is an amazing value for a dual battery, 1,000 watt, full suspension, moped style e-bike. However, like I already hinted at, there was some places where Engwe did kind of cut some corners to be able to achieve that price. We'll talk about those as we go through the full walk around. And maybe I'll even put some recommendations in the description on how you can maybe upgrade and how you can make it an even more fun to ride moped style e-bike. If you don't want the dual batteries, you can get just the single battery, which comes in at $12.99. Also about prices, Engwe bikes are currently on sale at time of filming, and you could get this bike for about $150 off. We have seen these sales run fairly frequently, so keep an eye on our discount page in the description for the most up-to-date pricing and sales. There are 3 color options available. There's a black, a white, and then as you see this here, this beautiful green. I like this color a lot. It's kind of a dark emeraldish green, and it really accents the tan seat very nicely. The total weight of this bike is listed at 77 pounds without batteries and just shy of 90 with both batteries. And it has a capacity of 265 pounds. With a listed rider height range of 5 foot all the way up to 6'8". I'm a bit skeptical on that second number. 6'8" seems pushing it a bit. As most moped style e-bikes, the seat is not adjustable. So if you are a taller rider, you may find yourself pedaling and say striking the battery here with your knee, as there's not a lot of clearance here. But myself being a 5'8" rider with about a 29-inch inseam, I found the pedaling position to be fairly comfortable. But like most moped style e-bikes out there, there is no adjustment in the seats. And with that overview out of the way, let's go ahead and start taking a closer look. The first thing that's gonna stand out to you are gonna be these mag wheels. These are mag wheels that will not require any straightening. They should be able to maintain their form pretty nicely. You don't know spokes. They are wrapped in some Chow Yang tires. These are 20 by 4-inch tires. They are listed as puncture resistant sidewalls, as well as having a knobbier tread pattern, so you should be able to handle some crushed gravel path and off-roading, some minor off-roading with these tires nicely. And coming around to the other side, this is gonna be the first place where you're gonna be able to tell that Engwe made some choices to help bring that total price down. We have a 160 mil front rotor, as well as mechanical disc brakes. These rotors are a little bit smaller than what we traditionally see. 180 is the standard size, as well as these are mechanical disc brakes. For a bike that has a motor claimed to be somewhere in the 1,000 watt area, we would have loved to see hydraulic disc brakes, but we understand in order to achieve the value that this bike brings in, they had to go with some mechanical disc brakes. We'll put some links in the description to Zoom and other brands from, say, Amazon for hydraulic disc brakes with motor cutoffs that we recommend. And then while we're also up here, I'll point out the bolt-on front axle. You will need to carry around an additional tool if, say, you were to get a flat while you're out riding. And one other thing about this axle that I wanted to call out, when I was installing this on the bike, I was not able to use the tools that Engwe includes to assemble this bike. There was one size for one side of the bolt, but there was not a wrench that included that fit the other sides. Just note that you may have to supply some of your own tools to get some of the parts installed. One of the other things that's worth noting about assembly while we're on the subject, the instructions. The instructions for the Engwe M20 left a little bit to be desired. They were thorough in certain aspects, but they were also a bit vague. They didn't have all of the tools listed. They also didn't have instructions on, say, the headlight assembly or any information on proper battery charging techniques or removal. So just be mindful that you will have to either A, reference the internet, reference some online links. If you've ever assembled an e-bike before and you're confident in bike assembly and you're generally mechanically inclined, assembling this bike will not be a challenge. So coming back in here to the front end, you will notice this fork. This is a double crown, so it mounts on the bottom and the top, motorcycle style hydraulic front fork. It does not have a lockout, but it does have a compression adjustment knob on the side. And then while we're on the subject of suspension, let's go ahead and talk about the rear one real quick. Tucked up under here on this rear swing arm is going to be this HLT 100 rear shock. This is listed. There's a sticker on the top that says it's a 750-pound shock. It has no adjustment that I could find on it. So it's kind of a set and you get what you get for rear. Now, if you're a lighter rider, I think you're going to find that this shock is sprung very tightly. But me being a 225-pound rider, I actually found that it did provide quite a bit of cushion when going over bumps and stuff like that, and it wasn't overly stiff. But of course, your weight is going to matter when riding this e-bike. This is another spot on the bike that if you're gonna be riding this for a long term, if you wanted to upgrade this, it wouldn't cost you but a couple $100 to put an adjustable rear shock on here that would allow you to, say, tune it if you're a lighter rider or even a much heavier rider. So let me go ahead and throw you guys on a stand and show you what this front and rear suspension do together. Let me go ahead and hop on this for you. So as you can tell, like I said, I'm 5'8" with a 29-inch inseam. This bike fits me pretty nicely. Some compliance in the front end, and the rear end feels a bit stiff, but I do know from the little bit of riding that I have done on this that it is going to provide some cushion over some of the bigger bumps, and it's not going to spring you off the ground as it's going to provide some actual compliance like a suspension. But like I said, that front suspension feels a bit softer than the rear, and you'll be able to turn up the compression to maybe stiffen that a little bit and kind of dial it into your weight. Overall, for the price, the suspension feels pretty good. Coming back in here, the next thing we're gonna have to talk about as we work our way up has to be these headlights. These are some Moto-Inspired dual beam LED headlights. You will notice in here, there's a bottom and top beam in each headlight. These are pretty bright. In order to turn them in, I'm giving you a sneak peek of the cockpit up here, you just turn the bike on, and then with that, the headlights automatically turn on. So these lower beams are on, and then there is this control here that you turn, you push the headlight button, and then the top beam will turn on. That's kind of like a high beam button, but in order to turn the headlights on, like I said, all you have to do is turn the bike on. They are kind of daytime running, and they always run. There is a control on the screen, but you do not need that. You simply use the control on the left-hand side that's independent to turn the headlights on and off. And one other thing to note about this headlight is that all of these bolts and everything are loose when you get them in the package, as the headlight is not pre-installed. Just know that you will have to install that. Here's a kind of a quick look in case some of your bracketry or bolts came unbolted. This is how it goes together. It took a little bit of work, but it was not difficult. And then on the bottom here, tucked up under the headlights, I don't know if you'll be able to see that on camera, there is just a hole. So you're gonna be riding this bike perhaps when it's fairly wet out. Water and stuff is gonna be able to get in there, and the ballast on the back of these lights did not appear to be sealed. So just be mindful of that if you are planning to ride this bike, like I said, in a torrential downpour or in some heavy water. And then here we have a look at the handlebars. These are some almost BMX style handlebars that mount on the bottom and then swoop up. They put you in a very comfortable upright riding position, but the other good thing about them is that they are adjustable. So you simply loosen these 4 bolts and you can adjust the cockpit in or out depending on the length of your arms, as well as having this top bar here completely unobstructed so you could mount whatever you would like. Coming around, here's a look at the controls. We have some no-name, all black mechanical disc brake levers. Then we also have our control here. So this is the headlight button that I was mentioning when I was looking at the headlight, as well as a horn button. It's not the loudest horn, but it is a nice inclusion to see. Here's a look at the display. We'll take a closer look at that in a minute. We have a look at the SIS 7-speed thumb shifter, the matching all black mechanical disc brake lever here, and they do have motor cutoffs. And then here's a look at another slightly obscure choice that we're not sure everybody's going to like the feel of, but it is something that could also be changed if you wanted to. This is a full throttle twist grip. So what that means is that the entire throttle twists, kind of like a motorcycle. It doesn't just twist in the center section, it twists all the way across. Have to pair this with a giant caveat. Please be careful if you are riding this, as it is very easy to twist the throttle. One nice thing though is that the bike, when it is in pedal assist level 0, does not provide any throttle. All right, here we are in the shade. I pushed us over here so we can see the display a little bit better. This is a LCD display. It's a fairly basic LCD display, but it has all of the key features that you really need. It is not terrible to see in direct sunlight. It does not have a brightness adjust, but it is pretty easy to see maybe the speed and the big numbers, but maybe seeing some of the finer detail might be a bit more challenging in direct sunlight. So on the main display, if you look in the upper left-hand corner, we have the battery. It is listed as a bar chart. Then we have the speed front and center. That is in kilometers an hour. I'll show you how to change that just a second. Then right below that, the small 0, that is going to be your pedal assist. And then below that, we have a trip meter. And that is also in kilometers per hour. Again, that will change once I change the unit of measure. To cycle through, the buttons are actually on the display. These buttons don't do anything. On the top is your power button, and on the bottom is your plus and minus button. To cycle through the lower options, you push the power button, and then we'll go to odometer, max speed, average speed, and then back to trip. Now, while this display is basic, it does have an advanced feature set, which we need to go to change from kilometers to miles per hour. So we're going to push both the plus and minus button at the same time. That's going to take us here. So P1 is the first setting you're going to get up to, and that's going to be your rated voltage. So we're going to leave that at 48 volts. Quick note while we're in here, there are some things in here that you could change that could possibly make the bike not run or even damage the bike, so please be careful in here. While the Engwe manual leaves some to be desired on assembly, it does actually have a decent section on the advanced settings here, so reference that if you have any problems. To cycle to the next one, you just use the plus and minus. I will show you how to edit one in here in just a second. P2 is listed as the wheel diameter, which we're going to leave at 23 inches. P3 is the max speed or the speed limit. We're going to leave that set. The bike did come shipped at 60 kilometers an hour, which I don't think this bike is capable of achieving. But if you wanted to, say, turn the bike down to be class 2, this is the setting you would use. Going to the next one, P4 now. This is where you would switch it from kilometers to miles per hour. To edit a setting, while the number is flashing, you simply push the power button, and now you'll notice that the bottom numbers are flashing. And then you just use the plus or minus to change it. 0, 1 is miles per hour, and then back to 0, 0 for kilometers. And then to lock in that setting, you simply push the power button again, and you notice the top number is flashing. The next setting is going to be listed as the speed sensor setting. Again, not one that we're going to recommend that you mess with. P6 is listed as the current limit setting for the controller. Again, not one we recommend you mess with. Again, P7 is a setting we don't recommend you mess with. That's your assistance sensor setting. However, P8 is going to be a setting that we do recommend that you can modify. Now, there is only 8 settings, so now we'll be back to P1. But let's go talk about P8 for a second. P8 is your power on password setting. So with the 8 flashing, we're going to push the power button, and here you notice the N on the right is flashing. To change that, we're going to turn it to a Y, push the power button again, and now you'll notice there are 4 numbers at the bottom. Here's where you would use the plus and minus to change that to a number, and what that number is going to do, this is going to be a number that is going to be required to enter to turn the bike on. It's a really nice safety feature. We're starting to see this come on more and more bikes. It's nice to see on a budget price bike like this. I'm going to go ahead and turn this back off, but just note that if once you activate this password, you will need that password to turn on the bike every time. I do not know if you lose that code, if Engwe would be able to help you reset the display. So just a little word of warning, make sure it's a 4-digit number that you remember very vividly. To back out of the settings, you simply hold the power button and that'll lock everything, and now you'll be back to the home screen and you see now we are in miles per hour. Let's go ahead and push back to the sun and let's talk about some more of the Engwe M20. Moving down from the cockpit, here's a look at those 2 batteries. We'll talk a little bit more about these towards the end of this review where I will pull those batteries off for you. These are externally routed cables. They are zip tied nicely to the frame and they are wrapped pretty nicely all the way up to the controls. There is a little phrase here, explore a new way, as well as there is this really nice gusset underneath the seat here. Adds some really nice styling to the bike. Here's a look at the Welgo metal pedals that are included with the Engwe M20. And the kickstand is back nicely out of the way. I did find this kickstand might be a touch low for certain environments, but it is adjustable. You simply take that bolt out and you can change the height. But like I said, it is back out of the way. You don't have to worry about striking it with your pedals. Here's a little bit more branding on the rear frame here, M20, as well as here's a look at the 160 mil rear rotor mechanical disc brake. Again, something I might recommend you upgrade. Matching Chaoyang rear tire and metal fender, which comes pre-installed, so you don't have to fight to get that on there. And then here's a look at the styling on the rear seat, but the reason I point that out is mostly for this tail light. So this is a LED tail light, comes pre-installed. This is one of those places where I don't think Engwe cut any corners for this light. It's pretty bright. Even in direct sunlight here, you can see it pretty well. It is also a brake light. So let's see if I can hold you here while I reach up here and grab the controls. When I pull the brake lever, it does illuminate, as well as if I turn the headlights off, the light goes off, but still operates as a brake light. And then coming down, here's a look at the drivetrain and motor. This motor is listed as a 750 watt nominal motor that peaks somewhere close to 1,000 watts. Pretty impressive. Stay tuned to our hill climb footage to see just what this is capable of. On the subject of hills, on Engwe's website, surprisingly, they list the maximum degree hill that this motor is capable of climbing, and that's listed as a 10-degree hill. Now, it doesn't say what stipulations that is, like what weight the rider was or anything like that. So I'll be sure to put that to the test. And then also here, you'll have a look at the Shimano turning derailleur. This is another place where Engwe definitely saved a few dollars by going with the lowest end Shimano derailleur. It does still have a barrel adjuster, and they included this derailleur guard. On the subject of derailleur guard, one note that was actually attached to the handlebars when the Engwe M20 got here was actually this one here. This kind of gives you some insight into Engwe. If you read through this closely, you'll notice that it says warm tip. I think that means warning. And derailleur is spelled a multitude of different ways. Not all of them are correct, so take that with what you will. But it is noted to bend the derailleur guard out if it is damaged or bent in shipment, which is a common problem that we see. This is a nice note to see included with a bike, gives you something to look for. We see this quite frequently on the forums as being a problem. But this note saying warm tip and the various spelling errors kind of gives you a little bit of insight as to how Engwe is able to save a little bit of money. Tucked here behind the derailleur, we have a 14 to 28 tooth rear cassette. You could always upgrade that to say an 11 to 28 or 32 tooth, give you some extra pedaling at higher end speeds. Following the chain up, we have a double-sided plastic chain guard around a 48 tooth front chain ring and a matching metal Welgo pedal up here at the front. We already talked about that HLT rear shock. And here's a look at kind of the swing arm. It mounts down here at the bottom, and the wires are nicely zip tied to these wire guides here. And they run up to this little pocket that is under the seat. You can see the holes drilled in there. The controller actually sits under the seat here, as well as the battery isolator for the 2 batteries. And the reason I point out where the controller and everything is located under the seat is that the battery isolator is located under there. From watching some other reviews and reading on the website, it's not exactly clear, but some of the reviewers were saying their early bikes did not come with the second battery installed. Our Engwe M20 here did come with the second battery installed on the top tube, as that is the optional second battery. This one here always comes pre-installed. They had to install their own battery, so just keep that in mind that you may have to install your own battery and battery isolator under the seat. Very easy install, very simple to bolt on. Just something to be understood is not exactly clear if you do get the dual battery option. And then coming up here, here's a look at this brown Engwe seat. One of the other downfalls besides the seat not being adjustable in height is that it is not a common seat. So you will not be able to change or upgrade the seat really in any way without some custom work from maybe an upholstery shop. The seat I found to be decently adequate for short rides, but you may find that your butt feels a bit differently about the cushion. And with that all out of the way, let's go ahead and throw you guys on a tripod and I will pull those 2 batteries out for you. All right, let's go ahead and pull these batteries out. first thing of note, you do have 2 sets of keys. On the actual key is engraved the code. Make sure that matches up to the lock, which is on the driver side of the battery to unlock. On the passenger side here, we do have these switches, the red switches for turning on and off the battery. The nice thing is that if this is off, the LED light on the top does not work. But if you're trying to ride and get decent distance, make sure both batteries are being utilized. Also here, you have the charge port. Batteries can be charged on or off the bike, as well as you have this other port, which is for a USB charging port. And that does work as well when the switch is on, so you could say charge your phone while riding as well. And then one thing of note, which I know seems ridiculous and funny, there is this yellow sticker that says, do not touch charging port with a metal object. We have actually heard of that happening quite frequently. People will stick a screwdriver, slip, or whatever, put the wrong thing in there, maybe put the key in there on accident, but that charging port will short the battery and damage the battery. So while that sticker does seem a bit repetitive, it is something that we have seen be a problem for some riders. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and pull the battery out. Both batteries are the exact same, but like I said, the keys are different. Go ahead and see what this top battery is. All right, that's gonna be this key set here. To unlock the battery, you simply put the key in, twist it towards the front of the bike, that'll unlock it, and then the battery can slide forward on the tray and come up and off. The battery goes on and slides down to lock into place. Here is a look at the underside. It is a 48 volt, 13 amp hour battery that is 624 watt hours. Now, I do not know if this battery is UL certified. There was some hint of that in the documentation of the paperwork. I'll put a note below on the screen now of what Engwe tells us if they are UL certified. Again, both batteries are exactly the same, 2 13 amp hour batteries. Engwe claims that if you're using a single battery, you can get somewhere between 34 to 45, I believe, miles. That's a pretty impressive range. And with both batteries, you should be able to get somewhere close to 90 miles. We think that might be if you're not using a throttle and you're doing a lot of pedaling, which this bike is not going to be the best for, being a moped style e-bike. So just keep that in mind that your range is going to vary, of course, depending upon how much pedaling you're doing. But we think that 40 miles on 2 batteries should be pretty realistic, but just keep that in mind. The charging port here on the side, the charger that's included is a 2 amp charger, and there is also only a single charger included. So you will have to charge these batteries independently. So just bear in mind your charging time is going to be almost doubled because there are 2 batteries. To put the battery back on, you simply put it over top of this and slide the battery towards the back and twist the key towards the back of the bike to lock it in place. Now the battery will not come off. And once the key is removed, the only thing the keys are needed for is to remove the battery. They are not needed to power the batteries on or off or power the bike on and off. So that pretty much wraps up the walk around of the Engwe M20. Let's go ahead, let me throw on a helmet. Let me get to some first-person riding footage, show you how this bike is to pedal. I'll try and do my best to explain that on camera, as well as show you what this 750 watt, 1000 watt motor is capable of up our hill climb test. So let's get to it. All right, here we are at the first-person riding footage section of the Engwe M20 review. In this section, what we're gonna try and do is show you what this bike is like when you're, say, pedaling around a neighborhood or using it just generally as a bike and kind of just riding it around. After this, we'll do a hill climb test to show you what this motor is capable of. So this portion of the test, I'm gonna start out, I'm actually just gonna do a top speed throttle run and see if this holds us at 20 or if it, with the overriding, it allows us to get to 28 on throttle alone. Then I'll go through the various pedal assist levels, kind of explain the relation to pedal assist and gearing. And then after that, there's a little bit of a off-road trail here. And I will kind of show you what this bike is capable of off-hill with that off-road with that dual suspension. So I did shift up to pedal assist level 5, let off on the throttle here, and now I'm gonna get back into the throttle. There's a little delay from throttle twist to actual activation. That's something I heard some other reviewers kind of complain about as well. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see this display on the left, but hopefully you'll be able to see the GPS in front of me. The throttle is related to pedal assist level, so I did have to turn up to pedal assist level 5 in order to get access to full throttle there. So here we go, a little bit of a turn. So it looks like we're going about 26, 25, 26, and it was a fairly easy approach to that speed. Again, that delay from off to on, you really can't modulate the throttle. It's either a on or off on the throttle for twist. It's not like some of the thumb throttles you've seen where you can gradually give it more throttle to get it up to maybe a slower speed or maintain a slower speed. All right, now let's go ahead and go through the various pedal assist levels and the shifting. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop though, because like I said before, I saw some other people complain about, some other reviewers had a gripe with this bike about, is that when you start pedaling, it was almost a full rotation before the pedal assist level even kicked in a little bit. And here we go, I almost find myself ghost pedaling immediately. It looks like it takes me up to 13, 14 miles an hour in pedal assist level 1. I have to upshift third, fourth, fifth on the shifter side here, sixth almost, to even feel like I'm providing any power. Maybe even seventh to feel like I'm actually providing power. It's a little bit of a downhill here, so yeah, obviously that's gonna throw that off a little bit, but I mean, looks like 14 miles an hour was where the motor was providing power up to. So let's go ahead and turn up pedal assist level 2 now. Wait till we get around this turn, slow it down a little bit, and let's see where we're at now. So again, that about rotation before the motor even kicks in. There we go. It's almost had to slow down before the motor kicked in again. And there we go. Now you feel the motor kind of take us up to 15 to 17. The display over here says 17. This says, there you go, this is catching up now, about 16 miles an hour. Again, I'm in 7th on the shifter, as it looks like the minimum speed for the pedal assist level 1 was 14. So go ahead and crank it up to 3. It felt a little bit more power there. I'm doing 17, 18, almost 19 miles an hour. Pedal assist level 3, and again, 7th on the shifter. I do find myself ghost pedaling, which is why I do wish that they had put maybe an 11 to 32 rear freewheel on here, so that I'd be able to maybe help provide some power here to maybe prolong. Even though I know I have two batteries, it would be nice. So all right, go ahead and shift up to pedal assist level 4 here. Again, felt the motor kick up there even a little bit more. 23 miles an hour, 24, 25. At this point, just providing power to keep that sensor engaged. Just go ahead and go up to pedal assist level 5 now. Still 7th, 26. That was a pretty big oomph, and I felt both the front and rear suspension work for me. Some turns here. The bike handles great. These handlebars, being able to adjust the cockpit to fit the rider is very nice. I really, for the value, this bike is making a hard proposition here. All right, let's go ahead and drop down here. And there's a little bit of an off-road section here. And let's just see what this bike can do here. Give it a little bit of power here. I mean, it is kind of like a little, woohoo. Yeah, it's a fun little bike, especially for the price. So, all right, let's go ahead and try pedal assist level 5 again. And now that we're back on road, let's mind our manners again. Get off throttle here. 18, 19, 20. This again, pedal assist level 5. This is probably going to be our like top speed run. What is this bike capable of doing here? Let's see. I'm in 7th gear on the shifter here. Gonna go at a little faster of a cadence than I would normally like. Let's see. 24, 23, 26, 25, 26 looks like the top speed for this bike. Yeah, 25, 26 looks like the top speed for this bike. So, all right, let's go ahead and throw this to the hill climb test and see what this motor's capable of going up a hill. All right, here we are at the hill climb portion test of the Engwe M20 review. The way this is gonna work, first time I'm gonna go up on throttle power alone, and then I'm gonna come back down, test out the brakes on my way back down, give you my synopsis of those, and then I will go up in the various pedal assist levels while shifting to show you what this bike is capable of if you're willing to pedal. Now, the throttle is tied to pedal assist level, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn it up to pedal assist 5. I'm not sure if you're gonna be able to see the display over here, so hopefully you can see the GPS screen a lot better. Give myself a little bit of throttle here to start off, get in position, and here we go. We will also put the specs for the hill on the screen now. So yeah, this bike is, for the price, it's so far been pretty impressive to ride around on. I'm pretty excited for it. So the hill's a little bit of down, and then right about here at this yellow sign, it starts to go uphill now. So here's where the hill will really start. So there we go. Looks like it does give me throttle past that 20 mile per hour mark. Here we go, maintaining 21. The display and the GPS are reading the same speeds here, 20 miles per hour. And it looks like it's holding it pretty stable there at about 20, 22 now. All right, here's where the hill's really gonna start. See what this 750 watt, 1000 watt capable motor is gonna do here. Now, like I said before, the interesting thing was that on the website, it said the maximum hill this motor was capable of handling was a 10-degree hill. This hill does fall below that. It is a 7.2 degree hill. So again, I'm providing no power. At this point, I would at least be pedaling a little bit, but we're just trying to show you the worst case scenario for this bike, what it's gonna be capable of doing. 9 miles an hour, that's pretty impressive. I am a 225 pound rider. It's still dropping a little bit. I expect us to probably hit 6 to 5, somewhere in there. Oh, there we go. 4, oh, even a little less there. So, okay, 4 or 5 miles an hour. Didn't stop though. And again, that was throttle power alone. I would be pedaling at this point. You still hear that motor working. It's still putting out torque back there. So yeah, so looks like 4 to 5 was our minimum speed there. And then now the hill kind of tapers off and the bike will slowly start to pick back up. Both batteries were on and fully charged for this. All right, let me go back down, test out the brakes, and I will come back up pedaling to see what this bike is capable of. All right, here we are back down at the bottom. If you look here, my maximum speed now, it's a new one, is 33 miles an hour. The brakes leave a bit on the table of desirability. I was pretty much pulling the levers all the way into the grips to get this bike to slow down. It was still slowing me down. It didn't fail to slow down. It just was not what I'm used to with hydraulic disc brakes. So if you're gonna be riding this bike a lot, that is definitely an area that I would recommend you upgrade, and you'd be able to upgrade for, you know, then still keep the price, the overall cost of this bike very low. So I definitely recommend brakes be on the list of upgrades if you're gonna be riding this bike a lot. So all right, there we go. So now I'll give myself a little throttle to start out here, and now I'm gonna downshift, go down to 1. All right, let's see now. Get up to about 10. I'm starting to ghost pedal a little bit. I'm gonna shift up to 2nd, to 3rd, until I get to those yellow signs down there. I'm gonna stay in pedal assist level 1. And I am in 4th on the shifter now. There we go, a little bit better. Coast down this hill a little bit. And then once the hill climb starts here, we'll kind of talk about what this bike does up hills. There we go. So pedal assist level 1. And I find myself almost immediately ghost pedaling. There is a little bit of a delay for the pedal assist to kick in, like I kind of talked about in the first person riding footage. But there we go, probably 3rd or 4th for this little bit of a hill here in pedal assist level 1. Turn up the pedal assist level 2 now. I'd have to upshift, so I'm in 5th now on the shifter. Going uphill, probably 6th. So for pedaling as well, like I said, I'm a 5'8" rider with 29-inch inseam. Pedaling on this is pretty comfortable. However, I do find the back of my upper hamstring area here hitting the bars and such on the seat. So you may not be comfortable depending upon your height, and again, there is no adjustment. So pedal assist level 2 here. Hill's really starting. I'm in it, it's about 6th. Shift up to pedal assist level 3. I didn't feel any more power come in there. I'd probably downshift here, maybe to 5th. Go up pedal assist level 4. Again, I still didn't feel any more power come on. And I would probably downshift to 4th. This is the steepest part of the hill here. Again, no throttle, just pedaling. And motor power, of course. Shift up to pedal assist level 5 over here. And yeah, I'd probably have to find myself downshifting here to 3rd. It feels like it's definitely giving me power. So it's definitely helping because our minimum speed, I accidentally tapped the brake lever there. And there was a good indicator of that delay. I tapped the brake for a second, which cut the motor power immediately, but then there was a little bit of a delay for the motor to come back on. So if you're not ready for that, that can be a little off-putting or upsetting there. There we go. But once it made it to the top of the hill, it looked like it was going to maintain about 7 miles an hour there up the hill, which is pretty impressive, especially given the value price that this bike comes in at. All right, so that pretty much wraps up the riding and review portion of the Engwe M20. Let me go and throw it to myself in some third-person riding footage, and I'll give you my concluding thoughts on this value-priced moped e-bike.
The Engwe M20 is the first Engwe e-bike that we've ever reviewed here at eBike Escape, and it did not disappoint. Given the cost of this moped-style e-bike, should everyone be riding one? Well, let's run through some of the things that Engwe got right on the M20, and maybe some things that you should consider before purchasing one. The price of the M20 is where things start to get interesting. The single battery model comes in at just $12.99, with the dual battery model coming in at just a few $100s more at $15.99. That means that you can get a dual 13 amp hour battery model for about the same price or even less than other single battery, single suspension moped style e-bikes. The overall price was the biggest highlight of why we chose to review this e-bike. Even more so, the company offers discount codes, so be sure to check out our discounts codes page for perhaps even a better deal on pricing, which I know is hard to believe. The Engwe M20 really blurs the lines between e-bike and motorcycle with its styling. The 20-inch mag wheels, dual beam headlight, double crown front fork, and even the placement of a second battery helps this motorcycle-esque styling. The gussets on the frame and slim seat are also Moto-inspired choices. However, I did find the seat to be a bit uncomfortable after about a 7 to 10 mile ride. So your mileage may vary, something to consider. The suspension on this e-bike did help cushion what the seat could not. The hydraulic front fork and HLT rear shock handled my terrain and riding style decently. I would normally raise concern here about the rear shock not being adjustable for heavier riders, but the M20 only has a max weight of about 265 pounds, which compared to other moped style e-bikes is on the lower side. Speaking of handling, I don't think I talked about this enough while filming. The M20 handled great. The BMX style handlebars put me in a very comfortable over the bars position that made the M20 feel very maneuverable and fun to ride. The 160mm mechanical disc brakes, while smaller than what we typically see, also help keep this bike controllable and easy to manage. They stopped you just fine, but other moped style e-bikes have hydraulic disc brakes, but that does come at an increased cost. So there is a trade-off. During our hill climb test, I put the 750 watt nominal 1000 watt peak motor to the test, and while it was able to make it up the hill, the lower 55 newton meters of torque the motor produced did slow down a good bit, which I assume is because of the 105 pound weight of the bike. For comparison, the Electric XP 3.0 has a 55 newton meter torque motor, but has a weight of about 40 pounds less, and it made it up the hill about 5 miles an hour faster. As a 225 pound rider, I was still satisfied with the overall performance and the 26 mile an hour top speed, but the power level for the price makes some sense. For some more experienced riders or people looking for a thrill, you may find yourself wanting a little bit more. The other standout item for me during the time riding has to be the lag between the twisting of the throttle and the actual motor engagement. While it is common for there to be a little bit of lag, this delay here was more pronounced than what we normally see. Another thing that struck me as surprising while riding was the actual throttle control. The full right-hand twist grip throttle was an interesting choice. So while yes, it is common on motorcycles, this is not common on e-bikes. And it can be a bit of an accident waiting to happen if you don't get in the habit of either turning your e-bike off before dismounting or shifting down to pedal assist level 0. So rider beware. Engwe is also a Chinese-based company, as is their customer support. Not to mention some of their questionable claims and statements on their websites. Just check out their About Us page or consider that they recommend this bike for up to a 6'8" rider if you are looking at the M20. We always recommend giving the brand a call or at least an email prior to purchase, especially with brands that we are less familiar with. Also, if you have any hands-on experience with Engwe and their customer service, please share that experience down below for potential customers. If you are looking for a great value moped-style e-bike, and if you're handy, don't mind upgrading or even fixing some of the shortcomings, brakes, throttle, maybe even a more powerful controller, then the Engwe M20 is going to be hard to pass up. The dual battery, full suspension, and decently capable motor almost seem too good to be true and really set this e-bike out from other options in the class. If we helped you decide on the Engwe M20, we'd really appreciate it if you purchased one after clicking our link down in the description. Thank you guys so much for the support, and let us know down in the comments what you think about the Engwe M20. Is there a better value moped style e-bike that we should look into reviewing? Should we review another Engwe e-bike? Remember always, ride safe out there, and I'll catch you all in the next one.